In this video, I'm going to tell you all about a great camera remote control app called Shutter. And I'm going to talk you through all of the features that this app offers and what it can do. And in the videos that follow, I'm going to show you some great examples of situations in which you can use certain features of the app, and even one or two ways that you can use it for a couple of little photography tricks. So if you're not familiar with Shutter, Shutter is available for iPhone, iPad and Apple Watch. Unfortunately, no Android system or any other phones are available, only on iOS. And it's also only compatible with Canon, which I use, Sony and FujiFilm cameras, and select models at that. Now obviously you need Wi-Fi in your camera because it's an app and it works using Wi-Fi. So for a full list of cameras that are compatible, to check to see if you have one of these brands, a Canon, a Sony or a FujiFilm, to check to see if your camera model is compatible, you can go to the website, click on the camera brand itself and see a full list of compatible cameras, and you can search for your model to see if your camera is compatible with Shutter. To connect Shutter to your camera is relatively simple. You need to make sure that your Wi-Fi is on, and what you can do is open up the Shutter app, and if it's the first time, go to Add Camera and choose your camera from the list and follow the setup instructions. It's relatively simple. And what it does is it uses Bluetooth, so it will pair first the camera and the phone via Bluetooth, which will allow it to initiate the Wi-Fi network. And what happens is that inside the camera generates its own Wi-Fi network. So Shutter can then connect to the camera's Wi-Fi network. So it only uses Bluetooth just to initiate the Wi-Fi network. Then it connects via the Wi-Fi, and then it does everything over Wi-Fi. Now you don't need to have general Wi-Fi because you're connecting, so you can use it absolutely anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. Basically, the camera is generating its own Wi-Fi network and you're connecting to that. So once you've done that, you'll see that basically you just then connect. It says it wants to join. It's already, that network code is the one that the camera has already set up, and you click that button and you let it connect to the camera. There we go, and it's done. See, it's that simple. And then each time, once you've done that initial setup, as long as you don't delete the setup or remove the camera, each time you'll just be able to go in and click that button and connect. Other cameras connect a little differently. The Sony has some special little thing where you can tap it on the side and do it. But again, as I say, depending on what camera you use, just follow the simple instructions in the app itself. So you can see now on the screen that if I turn it like this, I can look at it horizontally, and I can turn the view field around if I want. So if I'm doing a portrait, then it's good to have it this way. If I'm doing a landscape, I'll just turn the camera around like this and look at it this way. Again, I can still turn it around if I want to, but there we go, and now I can see that. So now I'm going to run you through all of the different features that Shutter has. And as I said, in future videos, I'll go deeper into many of those features and show you how they can be used in the field and how it's much more useful to have these features here on Shutter than setting up in your camera. Now I know most of these features on here, you'll see that we can control on the camera anyway, okay? But one of the things I love about Shutter more than anything is that although you can turn on the grid, you can turn on the blinkies, as you call them, the zebra stripes to check for overexposed areas in your scene. All of those little features, exposure bracketing, you can set exposure bracketing, exposure compensation, you can do all that on the camera. And I love the Canon because Canon's menu and setup is very ergonomic, and for the most part most things are relatively easy and quick to access. But on Shutter it's even faster. So when I've got the Shutter app open, then I can control everything even faster than I can on there. And sometimes features like the grid overlays, for example, I like to turn on the grid overlays just to maybe line up something. So for example here I'll show you one time where I used it to centralize the church and the mountain peak, and I used the grid overlay to do that. Now Shutter has a grid overlay that my camera actually doesn't have. It has several. The camera has a few, but this actually has more. And it has one grid overlay which is bang, a line right down the middle like that, right down. So that allows me to centralize things brilliantly. So I really love that. And it was really easy to turn that on, do that, and then turn it off again once I'd done it. So, you know, because I don't like to leave them on because then they obstruct your view when you're trying to watch the composition or watch what's going on in the clouds. So I'll show you now how quick and easy it is to access all of these features. So you can see on the screen, on the right hand side of the screen, or if we turn it this way, it's at the bottom of the screen. Either way, it's there. And you can see that you've got all of the standard settings. So up at the right, I can click the aperture and I can change my aperture to whatever I like, f16, there we go. Tap it to get rid of it. Now I've got the camera in aperture priority mode, so the shutter speed will be set. I can now change the ISO, so if I want to take the ISO down to get a longer exposure, there we go, I'll put that on 100, f16, and we can tap to focus. When you tap to focus, it will show me the shutter speed, 1/15 of a second. And I can also tap this one and adjust the exposure compensation too. It's so much easier, you know, I don't have to muck around here. I can do everything here one after another. So I can take that down to 0, that for example, take that down to -7, that's a little bit underexposed, and I can turn that off. Now notice in the bottom left corner I've got the histogram as well. I can turn that off, I'll show you that in a minute, but the histogram is there too. So I've got everything that I need. Okay, now if we click that Q button, you'll see that that other menu disappeared. So I'll open that up again, and now on there I've got some extra features. So for the focus mode, I can switch it between continuous and shutter, single shot and continuous shot. And I can also change the the AF area. See, very quickly and easily. So I've got access to that too. I click that button there, I've got access to the white balance, so I can change the white balance if I want to. Yeah. And again, as I said, I can rotate that with this one, or if I click this one here, now I can do two things. I can flip the view if I want to, maybe if I'm doing a selfie or something, and then here I've got the grid. Now here you go, the 2x2, that's brilliant, look at that. I can centralize that, so if I turn this now, turn this around here, I've got a church here. If I wanted to position that church slap bang in the center like that, there you go, I can do that. Now I can expose there, there we go. Now if I close that, for example, there we go. Now I've positioned that right in the center. I've even wanted to go down here, I could put it right in the middle of the frame completely. So, and then if we bring that back, bring that setting back, I've got then 3x3, so I can then think about my rule of thirds. If you want to use the 3x3 grid for your rule of thirds, then you can do so. There we go. And a good thing, as I said, I can put that down and I can make adjustments like this. There we go. And it's still connected. It hasn't disconnected, see? There we go. quick and easy. Now I've placed that on the third if I want to. Let's go back here. So I've got a 6x4 grid, and I've got the diagonals as well. So I've got all of those available, or I can switch them off. And again, you see, that's what I like. See, if I want to turn that on, I wanted to make that quick adjustment. Okay, that's set now. Now I don't want to leave this on there because it's obstructing my view of the scene. So I can quickly turn it off, just like that. I can also turn that on, see? This button here now gives me access to turning on the histogram. See, I've turned it on, now I've turned it off. So I can turn that on or off if I don't want it on. And the zebra strips, there we go. If I turn on the zebra stripes, I'm not going to get much here, so I show you one from earlier where I used the zebra stripes. And the false color. So there's the false color. You can see that clearly on here. I can turn on the zebra stripes, but there's nothing overexposed unless let's go to the exposure compensation and let's deliberately overexpose it. There we go. No, +2. Now I can see my overexposed areas. Okay. Let's take that back down, -3. There we go, with the zebra stripes on I can see that I've got no overexposed areas. I can also see my histogram there and everything. Isn't that brilliant? And this final button here gives you sounds. So I can turn the sound on, and there we go. If I want the shutter click to be audible on shutter, then I can turn that sound on. Now why would you want to do that? Well, it's actually quite useful if you're going to do some selfies. So if you want to put yourself out there in the scene, yeah, you can use shutter to do that. And then what you can do is you can use, I'll show you in a minute, the intervalometer. You can use the intervalometer to set up a sequence of shots, one after another, maybe with a 2-3 second delay between each one. And if you want to know, you're going to put your camera in your pocket or something, aren't you? You're not going to be holding the camera while you do a selfie. So you're going to set it all up, set a timer delay, and then press that button, give yourself a few seconds to put the camera in the pocket. And then when you put the camera in your pocket, you know, how do you know when it's taken the shot if you're far away from your camera? Let me show you an example of that now that I took before. So if you're far away from the camera, you can't hear the camera click itself. And if you're going to take 4 or 5 or 6 different shots with 2 seconds in between, and you're going to adjust your poses in between, you need to know when it's taking the shot. So you can turn on this and have a nice loud click from your pocket to tell you each time it's taking the shot. So that's another useful feature. Let's turn that off. There we go. Okay, so they're the basic features that shutter has. Okay, but the other features it has are this. So if we go here, we've got exposure bracketing. Now, as I said earlier, not every feature may be available on all camera models. Now I know there's a feature, the Canon R5 has pretty much everything, I think. The only thing it doesn't have is the shutter can also do focus bracketing if your camera enables it. Some Sony cameras I think have this feature in shutter, but it's not available for the R5. So for me it's not a problem because I never use the focus bracketing in the camera anyway. I prefer to manually focus bracket, and I usually do that in the past by just tapping on the screen and taking one shot at one and then refocusing on somewhere else further back and taking my second shot. But again, doing that, I'm having to touch the screen. Now, I can touch it lightly, but there's a chance I might move the camera. And if I move the camera even a little bit between shots, then I've got problems. So, same thing here. I could do that again here. I can tap to focus there. I could take one shot. Then I could tap to focus on the mountain there, and I could take one shot. And each time I'm not touching the camera. So, I don't even need the focus bracketing feature. I can do it all on shutter itself. So, the exposure bracketing. So if I turn that on now I can turn on the number of exposures I want to take. Now, of course, it's dependent on how many your camera can do too. So it will give you a warning if it can't do that, if it can't complete all of them. And then you can adjust the EV steps. So I could, for example, have 0.7 plus or minus 0.7, take 3 shots. There we go. There, now that's set. And now, if I want to take the 3 shots, instead of having to click 3 times using the cable remote that I used to use, I used to have to click it 3 times, or I used to have to hold it down and then release it once it's done the 3rd one. With shutter, I just need to press once. Takes 1 shot, takes the next shot, and takes the 3rd shot. Now you see I've got the zebra stripes on, and it's telling me that that 3rd shot was overexposed. Brilliant. I knew it would be anyway. And that's taken all 3 shots all in one go. All I had to do was click once. Didn't need to touch the camera at all. Let's turn that off. That's the exposure bracketing feature. Now, if we go to the timer, here you've got the intervalometer. So you can set an initial delay, say 2 seconds. And that's useful for selfies. So if I wanted to go out there and do a selfie, I can set an initial delay of, say for example, set an initial delay of 5 seconds, 2 seconds. Now ordinarily I'd do a 10-second timer and try and run out to the spot where I'd kind of manually focused on. But again, with shutter, I don't need to, because I can go out there with the camera and I can see myself on the camera in the frame, and then I can tap to focus on myself. Then I can set maybe a 2 or 3 second delay just to give me enough time to put the camera away in my pocket and set up my pose. Again, here's some footage of me doing that. So the initial delay is great for timers, but you've also then got the repeat, and that's the intervalometer. So what I can do is set it to continuously take the shots at 0 seconds, or 1 second delay, or 2 second delays, or 3 second delays. Now that's great if you want to do multiple selfies, like I said, with the family, or with your family or with yourself. If you want to go out there and take a sequence of shots and adjust your pose each time between shots, you can use the timer, initial delay, and the intervalometer to do that. And what's great also is you can either set it to infinity, so it just keeps on shooting until you stop it, or you can say, no, I want to take 5 shots. There we go. Now I've set it to take 5 shots. Let's say, for example, let's do an initial delay of 3 seconds, and I'm going to repeat that every 2 seconds. So let's do that. Now I'll make sure I turn that off because I don't want that done. And let's go. So, and it shows you it's waiting 2 seconds. Now it's taking the first shot, waiting 2 seconds, taking the second shot, and so on. Now that of course is great for astrophotography too, or if you wanted to do, I don't know, star trails or anything like that. So that's the intervalometer feature as well on Shutter. So we turn that off. Okay, now if we go to the little camera up here, I can also adjust the drive mode, you see. Now the good thing about Shutter is, if I turn on the continuous shoot, then I go back to my timer, look, now I've got a different menu. I've got an initial delay as well if I want to, but I've also got a capture length. So if I set the continuous shoot, high speed or low speed or whatever, I can then tell Shutter how long I want it to shoot for. So rather than pressing and then pressing again to stop, I can say, no, I want you to shoot for 1 second. There we go. So if I put it on 1 second now, that's the capture length. Okay, now I've got it on high speed. Now it's going to continually shoot for 1 second and stop on its own. Let's go. There we go. 1 second and it stopped. Now that's very useful for another technique which I'm going to show you in a future video too, about how to get a longer exposure without filters. So there you have it. That is all of the great features that Shutter offers. It doesn't end there. If I click this button now and I go to import photos, now all of the photos that I've taken, all of the RAWs, I can import them to my phone, or if you're on an iPad you can import them to your iPad, or you can change the view, large grid, small grid, and I can also just preview all of the photos that I've taken here on my phone rather than here on the screen. So I've got a bigger screen size to view it on, and if you're using an iPad you've got an even bigger screen to view everything on. So that is really, really useful. So you don't even need to import them. You know, it's useful just to scroll through and see all of the photos that you've taken. So even better preview than you have on here. So you can filter and sort them, do all sorts of things on here. And if you choose to import, for example, yeah, you can open them up here. You've also got the settings that you used here. And if I choose to import one like that, I simply click that button here and boom, I've downloaded that to my phone. If I want to select multiple ones and import them or import them all, then I can do it that way. So that's another great feature of Shutter. Now the thing, as I say, I really love about it too is, as I say, I can close my phone, put it in my pocket, and I can recompose my shot. Say I want to turn around and I want to take a different shot now. So I don't have to be holding my phone or mucking around. I can do all that here. There we go. I've got my hands free. Now I can take it back out. Look at that, shutter's still connected. It's still there. No. And boom, I can shoot straight away. Now if I use Canon Connect, I know that if I did that, I'd have to then go through and reconnect everything again. Shutter stays connected as long as the camera is on, and as long as you haven't closed the Shutter app or switched off the phone or anything like that, you can just simply do that, put it in your pocket, make any adjustments you need to make, and then bring it back out, and I guarantee you 99% of the time it's still going to be connected, and I can still, boom, take another shot. Isn't that great? I love it, really do. So what's also good too is it's not so bad here now because I can see the screen quite clearly, but sometimes when you're working out and it's very, very bright, and you know, you got those situations where it's very, very hard to see the live view screen, and I usually look through, but I often find that you can, you know, you can then use Shutter instead you can see the screen much clearer and easier, and you can also shade yourself to see the screen when you can't see the screen here. So that's another great feature of using Shutter, or any actual remote control app, to be honest. As you can see here how very quickly and easily I'm able to make my adjustments, even if I'm holding it, or as I say, I can put it down and put it in my pocket if I want to make some other adjustments. You see, so I can clearly see on here what I'm doing and get a nice clear view of the composition and take the shot. Now the other thing I forgot to show you was the aspect ratio. When I showed you the grid view and the flip view, I forgot to show you this. Now the aspect ratio, here you can see, you can view different aspect ratios. Now the one thing this doesn't do, it doesn't change the aspect ratio in your camera. Now I know in my camera I can change and shoot in different aspect ratios. But when I adjust the aspect ratio in Shutter, it doesn't change it in the camera, but it does give you a preview to give you an idea. So if you are thinking of trying a different aspect ratio, then you can preview it very quickly. So I can turn it to that, for example, see how it looks like that. I can do a 4:3, 5:4, 16:9, or 16:10. And I can change this to a 16.9, so I can use Shutter to quickly preview to see how that would look. And then I can make a decision based on that as to whether that might work. And then I can very quickly in the camera switch that to the 16:9 and take my shot. And switch it back. Or I can still take the shot full frame and I can crop it later if I want, but I've been able to preview how it would look in that aspect ratio here on Shutter. So I could take a 4:3, for example. So, and again, I can quickly do it. See, I can go quick look. Oh, 16:9. Nah, that doesn't work. Boom. Off, done. Super quick. So now the sun's going down and we're starting to get some nice colour here. So let's so I can use both because I can see both here, and I can use both. Let's, wrong one. Turn on my 2x2 and I can position this right in the center like that. Then I can just put the phone down and adjust this like so. See, now I've got it centralized. I've got my histogram down in the corner so I can adjust my exposure compensation. Now, you can't switch between, you see, for example, I'm in aperture priority. If I wanted to take shutter priority or full manual, I still have to do that on the camera. That's one of the things. It would be nice if I'd be able to do that here on the app, but I can't. But if I switch it to full manual, obviously then you get full control of everything, just like you do in full manual. If I switch it to shutter priority, now you can see then that I can adjust the shutter speed and the aperture will be set accordingly. Most of the time, to be honest, I shoot in aperture priority, so I'll leave it like that. And then I can adjust my exposure compensation accordingly. There's I can see by my histogram. Let's very quickly turn on the zebra stripes. See, I've got nothing overexposed. If I wanted to take that up a bit, see, I take that up to minus 0.3. I've got a little bit of overexposure there in those bright clouds. So let's take that down, minus 0.7, and they disappear. So now I can turn them off quickly and easily, and boom, take my shot. So there you have it. All of the great features that Shutter offers for my Canon R5, and maybe some others for your camera. So as I say, all links will be down in the description, links to each shutter for each camera brand and information on their website for everything that you need to go check it out. And as I say, the videos that follow, I will show you some great examples of how shutter can be used, how some of these features, like how, for example, the exposure bracketing can be used to blend images together when you've got a high dynamic range image like a sunrise or a sunset, and you want to take multiple shots to cover to get all the detail in the shadows and all the detail in the bright areas, and then you can blend them together in Photoshop. So you can use the exposure bracketing feature for that, and how it's much easier for that, and various other things. So the videos that follow, each one will show you how a specific feature can be used in the field and why it's better to use shutter than it is to use your ordinary cable release or anything else. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you're new, and check out my other videos, and stay tuned for the other shutter videos that are about to come.